By the late 1800s, bicycles were fast. They were thrilling. They were dangerous. Really dangerous. One wrong bump, one sudden stop, and riders weren't just crashing, they were falling from the sky. And then someone asked a question, it's so simple that it changed everything. Why does the wheel have to be that big? Because the bicycle didn't just need to be faster anymore. It needed to be smarter. It needed to be safer. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Lost Gears podcast. I am Tyler. So far this season, we've watched the bicycle slowly figure itself out. First, it learned how to balance. Then, it learned how to move under human power. Then, it got obsessed with speed, insanely obsessed with speed, and kind of lost its plot. Today, we're talking about the moment everything finally clicks. The invention that didn't just change bicycles, it defined them. This is the story of the safety bicycle, the reason why your bicycle looks the way it does today. By the 1870s, 1880s, somewhere in there, the penny-farthing ruled the cycling world. Huge front wheel, tiny rear wheel, direct drive, and incredible speed. But also a center of gravity that sat basically over the handlebars. Hit a rock, over the bars. Brake too hard, over the bars. Think about braking? You guessed it, over the bars. These crashes were so common, they had a name. It was called taking a header. If you heard our last episode, we mentioned that quite a bit. Taking a header is a very polite way of saying you just somersaulted headfirst into the freaking road. Cycling had a reputation problem. It was risky, exclusive, and mostly reserved for the young, wealthy men who could afford the injuries. That meant one thing. This design was never going to be able to scale. So engineers start asking the smarter questions. What if both wheels were the same size? What if the rider sat between the wheels instead of on top of them? What if speed didn't come from the wheel size, but from gearing? And that's where the chain drive comes from. Instead of pedals being bolted directly to the front wheel, a chain transfers the power to the rear wheel. This single idea changes everything. Now you can lower the rider so they're not sitting 6 feet in the freaking air. Improve the balance now that you can put them back in between the wheels where they kind of started. And then use gears for speed instead of wheel size. The bicycle suddenly becomes reasonable. In 1885, John Kemp Starley introduces the Rover Safety Bicycle. Equal-sized wheels, rear-wheel drive, chain propulsion, and a diamond-shaped frame. Look at it today and you'll realize something wild. You already know exactly what it looks like, because you're still riding its current descendant. Quick sidebar here, because this part matters more than it gets credit for. Early safety bicycles were still riding on solid, hard rubber tires like the high-wheelers, which meant they rattled your bones still. Then, all of a sudden in 1888, John Boyd Dunlop, yes, you've probably heard that name, you know it, Dunlop, introduces the pneumatic tire. Air-filled tires. Suddenly, bicycles are faster, smoother, less exhausting, and dramatically more comfortable. This is the moment where riding a bike stops feeling like endurance training and starts feeling like a little more of that freedom we keep talking about that bicycles have given over the years. Honestly, without pneumatic tires, the safety bicycle probably doesn't take off the same way that it did. Here comes the real revolution now. The safety bicycle wasn't just safer, it was accessible. Women could ride it, older riders could ride it, working class riders could afford it. Cycling just absolutely explodes, whether it's the commuting, which we still see to this day, people commuting on bicycles, the recreation, Again, still something happening to this day. All of these touring, racing, all of it still happening to this day. But this is when it started. The safety bicycle truly started all of these things. Other than racing, as we've talked about in the early episodes here on the Lost Gears podcast, people have always wanted to race crap. So that wasn't started by the safety bicycle. But the cities kind of start changing around this idea. Roads improved, more cycling clubs form, and manufacturers start to kind of scale production. For the first time, the bicycle becomes not a novelty, not just a stunt, but a product. And once that happens, brands are born. Hence, what Season 1 will be all about here on the Lost Gears podcast. But in that last segment there, what we were just talking about, there's one thing that stuck out. Women could ride it. That's one of the main reasons the safety bicycle matters. It has nothing to do with the speed, the gears, the frame geometry. It has all to do with who was finally allowed to ride. Before the safety bicycle, cycling was risky, awkward, and socially off limits for most women, of course, because we're talking about the 1800s. Penny-farthings weren't just dangerous, they were impractical, immodest, and often outright discouraged. Then the safety bicycle arrived. The lower frame, easier mounting capabilities, more stability, more control, and suddenly more women were riding than ever. This caused, of course, a lot of opinions. Victorian society panics. Doctors warn of bicycle face. Newspapers claim riding will damage women's health. Others argue it will make women too independent. No, we can't have that. Of course not. Unbelievable. But honestly, that's, of course, very telling. Susan B. Anthony famously said that bicycles had, quote, done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. And at this time, it couldn't have been more true, because for the first time, women had independent mobility, freedom of movement, and a way to travel without freaking permission or an escort. Oh my gosh, it's getting me worked up here. Cycling even starts to influence a little bit of fashion. Corsets start to loosen instead of absolutely killing people by... Oh, don't get me started. Bloomers start to appear. Yes, the pants, the bloomers, yes. Because now women's dresses aren't getting caught in the chains and the gears. They're actually able to ride. Practical clothing becomes a kind of a quiet rebellion. The safety bicycle doesn't just change transportation, it challenges social rules, and I'm here for it. And once that door opens, there is no closing it again. Once the safety bicycle arrives, the basic formula doesn't change. Steel frames get lighter, materials improve, gears multiply, as we've seen, brakes evolve, but the layout. 2 equal-sized wheels, chain drive, diamond frame, that's it. We've tweaked it, we've refined it, we've obsessed over it, but we have never truly replaced it. The safety bicycle isn't just a step in history, it is the answer. By the end of the 1800s, the bicycle has finally arrived. It's safer, it's practical, it's fast enough, and most importantly, it's for everyone. The design is set, the culture is growing, and the demand is exploding. Which brings us to what happens next. Because once people everywhere want bicycles, someone has to build them. At scale, in factories, with brands, catalogs, racing teams, and global ambition. Next episode, we will begin Season 1. Not with Schwinn just yet. Of course, I have talked about how we're going to talk about the Giants. Schwinn, Giants, Specialized, Trek, of course. But there were brands that came before those giants, and I want to make sure they're not the forgotten empires. They were the early powerhouses, the brands that built the industry that Schwinn would eventually dominate. But with that does close Season 0, our roots season, where it all began, and now We will begin to dive into some of those brands like we mentioned and figure out where this thing really took off. I am Tyler, and I appreciate you joining me on the Lost Gears podcast, and we will see you at the start of Season 1. Ride on.